like to say hello to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This was the adventure after the 3 weeks, seeing that I was on track and we'd all been unwell and understanding that it was going to get noisier, colder, dirtier. We went on a little adventure. And so we went on a car from Bodh Gaya to Patna, which is the capital city of Bihar. It was the worst drive of my life. 4.5 hours to travel 120 kilometers in a van. I don't want to say the van seats were too small. I'll say that my body was too big for the seats. And so my knees were jammed up against the seat in front, and it was just, my lower back was being crunched. And anyway, sometimes you need to get through some difficulties before you get to the fun stuff. That's what adventures are all about, right? So we're at the Patna International Airport. I didn't take all these pictures. My godson, Gautam, and my student, Kunchin, were taking the pictures. I took some of them. This was our humble abode for the period of time. This is the Lemon Tree Hotel, which I recommend if you're ever going to Aurangabad. I recommend the Lemon Tree Hotel. It's 3.5 stars, but they have a very good breakfast buffet. So when you go to Ajanta caves, you have to get into the government-run bus. You have to buy your ticket, and you have to get into the government-run bus to drive into the historical site, which is part of the Archaeological Survey of India. It's under the auspices of their protection. So this was our bus, and we headed in. So yes, coming into the entrance. So these are these caves. Basically, it's a cliff face shaped like a horseshoe. And from about 2 centuries BC, so that's 2,200 years ago, they started making viharas, meditation halls, dwellings for monks. And what's important to understand is that nothing has been added. What you'll see, posts, balustrades, statues, it's all just simply been a process of extraction. And what you see is what's left. They did put a little bit of mortar on the wall so that they could paint it. So here we are inside cave number 1. The caves don't go in historical order. They're numbered as you meet them when you come in the entrance. So the Mahayana caves came later. The Theravadin caves came earlier. But the first cave you come across is a Mahayana cave. This painting on the side is a very famous image of Padmapani Bodhisattva, which is a form of Avalokiteshvara. So you can see these paintings on the wall. They're about 1,500 years old and still there. And 1,500-year-old mandalas and things. And this is this beautiful image of the Bodhisattva, 1,500 years old. So the story of, apparently the trade routes changed. The wonderful thing about the Ajanta caves is that they never got, I had to have a selfie with the famous Bodhisattva, excuse the vanity. Okay, give a bit more of a sense of the scale in this picture. So the extraordinary thing is that the trade routes changed and the monastic order, I guess, just fizzled out, got less and less over time. But this was a monastery for 900 years. And then it just got grown over by jungle. So what occurred was an Englishman by the name of John Smith went hunting for tigers, and the tiger stopped on top of the cliff, and John Smith stumbled across one of these caves. And unfortunately, I don't know how bright he was, but he wrote on one of the paintings of the Buddha, John Smith was here, wrote the year or whatever. But anyway, he did rediscover them. We're grateful for that. So just, having a look, these extraordinary details on the posts, and just an incredible amount of work. Paintings on the wall. So this little doorway here was probably the entrance to a monk's dwelling. And we were there in winter, and it was 33 degrees and 90% humidity in winter, so Celsius. So I would assume that in summer it's going to be quite a bit hotter, and I would think that living inside a cave would be very nice. So there's many paintings, and a lot of the paintings represent daily life in India in those days. Some of them are Jataka tales, but it's quite extraordinary. So you can see in the front how a cliff face was turned into a monastery. Cave 2 is famous for its paintings on the ceiling. I'll show you beautiful lotus motifs and mandalas. Cave 3, they gave up digging it because it was too hard. So it's this half-dug cave, but the basalt stone in that particular part of the cliff face was too hard, they gave up. Cave 4 wasn't painted, and it seems to have been a monastic dwelling. And it's a lovely space to meditate because it's much more vast. I did take some pictures of the lotus motifs because, as you know, I have a new lotus painting habit, and I was taking notes. I have a sneaking suspicion that I might have painted some of these lotuses on these ceilings in a past life. And that sneaking suspicion, I did check with Ajahn, who has some special abilities, and he did confirm that Ajahn had spent a life at Ajanta caves as a bhikkhu. So, which is not so surprising to me, because if you come and visit my monastery, you will notice that there are a great number of very beautiful stone Buddhas, and such things probably don't come about without some pre-existing causes. So I was straining my neck taking these pictures of these lotuses and mandalas. And, beautiful. Yeah, 1,500 years old. So here's the photographer. You haven't seen him yet, Mr. Chin, my student. Fortunately for us, he had a brand new phone, which we were using to document the camera of which we were using to document the adventure. So here's up on the areas where you walk, get a bit more of a sense for the scale. So this is Cave 4 that I was mentioning, much larger, not painted, a lovely place to meditate. Less tourists in there because there's no paintings. You get a bit of a sense for the scale in this picture. So it's hard to describe. I mean, one really does have to go oneself to feel, you know, each one of these caves has probably taken 50 years at least to carve out of the mountain. And there's something about the faith, the generosity, that incredible expression of faith of the lay people of the day. And there's also something about the sense of solidity, earth element and space, that's just very, the mind is uplifted seeing people's faith, and the mind also feels settled just by the, you know, the groundedness, the earthiness, and the coolness. It's very lovely. A lot of Indian tourists, and this part of India is much more materially developed than the northeast, where the Buddhist holy sites are, the 4 main holy sites. So people don't ask, there's no beggars asking for money or asking for food. There are people with mobile phones asking for photos. So it's very different. And I learned the word for one photo, please. Ek photo, one photo. The problem is, ek photo never means just one photo. It normally means many photos, because everyone has a phone and everyone wants a photo. But anyway, as a metta practice, so this cave, I can't remember the number now, but one of the caves about halfway along is actually a 2-story cave. So this is from the upstairs balcony from a 2-story cave. And here's the staircase. And upstairs in this cave, there is a beautiful Buddha statue. I was really moved by this Buddha. I don't know why. I just think the proportions are particularly lovely. And I really liked this Buddha. And, again, some of the caves are just quiet. This cave was nice and quiet. That's the main shrine room of the same cave, but this was off to the side. I really like this one. Yeah. Serene face. Another cave had 100 small Buddhas in the entranceway. This is an interesting image. Not everybody shares my interest in Buddhist art, but just in case you do. There's a famous image in the Sarnath Museum with the 5 bhikkhu disciples, the deer and the Dharma wheel, of the Buddha in the teaching pose. And many people consider it to be something of a prototype or an original, and they consider it to be the most beautiful. What's very interesting is when I discovered this particular image of the Buddha in the teaching mudra, you'll see down below there is one disciple. I would assume that that's Anya Kondanya. So the Buddha has taught the Dhammacakka Sutta. Anya Kondanya has become the first stream enterer. And you can see the deer are there, the Dharma wheel is there, the disciple is there. These interesting half dragon, half stallion creatures are on either side of him. And the devas are on top. And there's a floral aura, but the floral aura is in paint. And the interesting thing to note about this is this was produced several centuries before the famous Gupta image in the Sarnath Museum. And as someone who studies Buddhist art, I was excited about this. And it became obvious to me that the people in the sculptors from the Gupta kingdom had been and studied the art in Ajanta caves and had replicated, and I believe improved. I do believe the Gupta Buddha images are the most beautiful. But they started carving the floral auras rather than painting them. So in the Gupta images, you have these beautiful carvings of floral auras. But the floral aura is right there in paint first. And they tweaked the proportions. They made the devas a bit smaller, a bit more proportional. They made the Buddha statue a little bit more elegant in his proportions. But kudos to the sculptors of Ajanta caves, because keep in mind, they were carving this 10, 15, 20 meters inside a mountain, and with poor light, I would assume. And, you know, I think it's much easier to create a masterpiece from one standing piece of stone that you can walk around in light. So I was really, for myself, I felt gratitude for the artists and the sculptors, and I felt, I guess I have an artist temperament, so I might be moved by Buddhist art more than you are. I don't want to bore you too much. On to the next photograph, but it was an exciting discovery for me. Yeah. Another thing to notice, there's a type of Buddha image in Thailand, the Sukhothai kingdom, standing Buddhas, that are generally considered to be original to Thailand. But here you have this shapely shape, which is very similar to the Sukhothai Buddhas, from about 700 years before the Sukhothai kingdom existed. So once again, I would assume that traders between Thailand and India, there was movement, possibly movement between the artists as well, or maybe people came and did sketches, but I personally believe that the Sukhothai images are based upon these images in the Ajanta caves. So some of the caves were specifically for chanting. So this is a Theravadin chanting chapel. So the way they did it is they made a little stupa inside that could be circumambulated. And then this is where they would come to do their puja, their chanting puja. And this particular shaped roof, the arched ceiling, has really incredible acoustics. 3 or 4 people chanting, it sounds like 100 people are chanting together. And it's very interesting because it's not overwhelming. It's not just like this never-ending echo. It's just pleasant. It just feels like a really nice amount of reverb, that naturally occurring reverb that gives it more depth. Beautiful Buddha images. So the Theravadin caves, as a rule, only had images of Buddhas. And so this is quite possibly 2,000 years old, these paintings in this cave. And it's very interesting to see a brown-skinned Buddha. We don't see that very often. So, and as you can see, every inch of the place was painted at some point. And according to my tastes, I really love it in the state that it's in now. I love the gray with just a little bit of white lime wash in the cracks. I love the serenity of that. I can't even quite imagine what it would have been like to be bright colors completely covered with Buddhas from the floor to the ceiling. Gosh, it must have been quite a riot of color. But I suspect that when it's just lit by butter lamps or the equivalent, it really would have been quite magical. But I love it. I love it in its current state. It's so serene. So it's basically a river gorge. There's a bit of a stream flowing through here, and there's cliff face arches around. Does Achalo Bhikkhu look happy to come to Ajanta caves? When I come here, when I go there, I feel it feels very much like coming home to me. And there's one cave in particular that when I walk into, I have to say to myself, don't cry, don't cry. It's really quite overwhelming, the feeling of familiarity and appreciation and of coming home. So we'll get to that a bit later. Yeah, that cave where I feel very at home is here, cave number 26. One of the locals. Some kitties. We have a photo, please. Jin took the picture and he said, everybody put your hands in respectful gesture. Look at this kid here. No, I don't want to be respectful. This one as well. Cute. Amy looks happy as well. We're all happy. We enjoyed our adventure to the historical archaeological site. I felt this Buddha had a really serene face. Yeah. Because basalt stone doesn't have the same density as sandstone, it's not as easy to get the really fine detail as you could in sandstone, but this one comes close. It's very nice. How's this for a grand entrance? A couple elephants. Up a staircase to a different section. I'm assuming this is a Naga protector deity. Venerable Weshin. My godson / attendant, Gautam, his name is. So I remember I went with a guide on a previous visit, and the guide explained that when different people wanted to sponsor a Buddha, they basically just kept filling in the spaces until there was no space left. As the centuries progressed, it's hard to know exactly which century which Buddha got carved, but in front of the devotional chapel where people would do the chanting, the walls got full of devas and Buddhas. And of course, we couldn't miss the photo opportunity, but first of all, just extraordinary, isn't it? So here you have great disciples, here you have teaching Buddhas, here you have Buddha inside a chedi. These are lovely. I love these Buddha inside a chedi images. And again, these images that Thai images seem to have been based upon, I believe. Very nice light. couldn't miss the opportunity for a photo opportunity. This might be a book cover one day. What do you think? Thumbs up? Thumbs up, thumbs down? You're right. So this is a Mahayana chanting vihara. You can see it's more ornate and quite small in scale, but just beautiful detail. I suspect what happened as the centuries went along is there became less emphasis upon painting and more emphasis upon doing the detail in the sculpture itself. So the sculpting became more refined and more beautiful. You can still see a little bit of, you see this lime wash here in kind of wave patterns. This is a kind of a cobalt blue color. This is a saffron color. So the whole thing was painted. I read somewhere that the traders between India and Europe, that there had begun to be a bit of a Grecian influence in the posts. You've probably seen some lovely marble sculptures in Florence, in Italy, etc. Greece. Apparently the outside of the temples were painted as well with this lovely saffron color, which makes sense because the monks wore kind of a dark saffron colored robe. What was interesting for me to notice is that this is my favorite color for architecture. Most of the buildings in Anandagiri are this color. And that's Ajahn actually saying, I approve of this color. I think part of the reason I like it in this life, maybe because I liked it in a previous life. The Mahayana caves begin to have images of women. This is the Buddha's mother, I believe, Mahamaya Devi, and her attendant as she was giving birth to the Bodhisattva. You start to see Nagas and Bodhisattvas in the Mahayana caves. So this is we saw it from the entrance. This is like looking back from towards the last cave. This is cave number 26. And this is the cave that when I walk inside, I have to tell myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Very, very moved by this cave. There is a kind of a large image of a reclining Buddha to the side as he was entering the Mahaparinibbana. And it's particularly deep relief. You can see they've really made him very beautiful. Under the Sala tree, the Devas coming to see. There's a monk. There's a monk here. This is Anuruddha, who is checking where the Buddha's mind is, because if you recall, he went up to the 8th jhana and then back down to the 4th, and then up to the 4th jhana and then into Nibbana. And Anuruddha was able to tell people where he was and when he attained final Nibbana. And this is Ananda, who's shedding a tear, because Anuruddha was an arahant. He could maintain perfect equanimity as the Buddha entered Mahaparinibbana. Ananda was a stream enterer, so he was still affected by liking and disliking to some degree. So he shed a tear. So we did our puja in here as well. They've done a very nice job on the lighting. There isn't any smell. It doesn't smell bad. I think part of the reason is they keep the bats out, and it doesn't smell damp or musty. I think because there's nothing there that can really. There's no fiber. There's no organic material. It's just stone, so nothing absorbs water and goes moldy. So it actually feels fairly fresh in the caves. The acoustics in this cave are really great for chanting. We had a sit between the post and the teddy. I took this picture myself. So, JC, I don't know what people's attention span is like if they're getting bored, but I see we still have a good number of people. I might try to find some footage, some actual film footage, because it really does it more justice. Is that okay?
Sure, Ajahn. So
New,
when you
new
share
share, new share.
yeah, if you can click below, there's for the video, you can actually click share again
Right.
later.
Can I just find it first?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then see if I can find it. Bear with us. It is worth seeing the footage. Okay. Can you see that, JC, or not?
Not
Nope.
yet.
Okay,
I
so I
think,
need to stop share and I need to do a new share.
yeah. And if you can click below, there are two buttons to optimize the video or something. There are two checkbox.
You have to be patient with me. New share. Okay. Can you see that one?
No, I'm still seeing your desktop.
Okay. So what do I have to do? Tell me what to do.
Can you click share screen
Yeah.
and then check the two checkbox below?
Check the two. Share sound and optimize for video. Yes.
Yeah. Then you go to the video file instead of the desktop and share the video file.
Can you see that one?
I can see gray screen. Can you try to play to see if we can see the content?
I'm playing it, but it's not coming up.
Yeah, it's not coming up.
Maybe it's not possible.
Yeah, can you instead of sharing this whole thing, can
Yep.
you, when you click share,
Yep.
just share the video? There's an option to, instead of sharing the whole desktop,
Yep.
there are other boxes, just the video.
One
Option.
advanced sharing options. Nope, I can't see it.
In the first screen, they normally have a few things to share, right? Can you just share the video application instead of the whole desktop? Is there an option to just click on the video to share?
One participant, multiple participants, all participants. Nope. Can't see it, sorry. One second, let me try to get it on the desktop playing and then see. Let's see if I can share.
Yes.
You can see it, I think.
There's something above that's blocking it, and then it's coming up.
Can you see the film?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you seeing that, JC?
Yes, Jan, I can see you now sitting meditation.
Okay, great. photos are always kind of two-dimensional. When you get a bit more of a sense for the depth and the scale, the atmosphere. So it's probably 20 meters deep, this cave. Okay. You're able to see that, are you?
Yes, and very clear chanting. Nice.
That's the chant that we do in English, but it's done in Pali at the end of our sessions each time. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, etc., in Pali. So, I have another slideshow I can show you if you want to see the Ellora caves. But if you've got somewhere you need to go, I won't hold you hostage. Maybe you can have a show of hands. How many people would be interested to see the Ellora caves pictures? Do people know how to put their hand up? Okay, real hands, not digital hands. Excellent. Okay, so people are still interested, so I will continue to screen share. They are very special places, and one has to kind of go out of one's way to go there, because it's not on the normal Buddhist pilgrimage route. I think some of you will be pleased to know that I did some research with regards how I would lead a pilgrimage there, which cave had notable paintings to see, which cave is suitable for chanting, which cave is suitable for meditation, and I have already planned something of a potential pilgrimage. If people are interested, Ajahn could take you. What I'm interested to do would be to go to Sarnath in Varanasi, so that at least we would go to one of the four holy sites, the place where Lord Buddha taught the first sermon, and we could see the beautiful art in the museum there, and we could chant the Dhammacakka Sutta, meditate, etc. And then we would fly to Delhi and then to Aurangabad, and we would stay quite close to the holy sites. Right? What we were doing, we were staying in a place called Aurangabad, very nice, fairly clean city, and we had to travel though 3 hours there and back to Ajanta. There is a new hotel which has opened just in front of Ajanta Caves, and it's probably 3-star, not 3.5, but it's good enough. It's new, it's clean, and it would mean that you could get there before most of the tourists arrived, and you could spend more time there rather than spending 3 hours in a bus. So I did get the card of the manager, and so what I kind of have in mind is about 10 days, a couple of days in Sarnath, and then a couple of days at each of these there's a day of travel getting there and a day of traveling getting back. But maybe Joyce, you can send out a feeler or something. How many people would be interested in a 10-day pilgrimage, which was Varanasi, the Deer Park, Ajanta, and Ellora Caves? You can let me know. Now let me try to find my slideshow. India. Ellora. Okay. Can you see this, JC, or not?
I can see that, but there's this black gray thing
okay.
above. I think other app that is overlapping a little bit.
Yeah, I'm starting a new. How do we turn that off?
Oh yeah, I can see the image, but the top part is covered.
Is that okay?
There's still one bar of gray color. Is there an application on top or behind?
I can't see anything on my screen.
Anything? It's only okay. I mean, I can see 99% of it. It's just that one color of
Right.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Nice flowers.
So we were going to get some flowers to offer at the. So I should mention the Ellora caves developed afterwards. Buddhism at that stage was Mahayana Buddhism. The trade routes changed. Ellora caves were supported by 4 different dynasties, so many centuries. And Ellora caves have had Hindu caves and Jain caves and Buddhist caves. So we were going to the Buddhist ones, obviously. Selecting our flowers. I'm looking at that rose one and I'm like, you know what? I think we need that one. Lovely bougainvillea bush right in front. So this is a Hindu, it's not really a cave, it's literally a temple carved out of a mountain. But we went to the Buddhist caves. You can see we're enjoying the warm weather and the sunshine, health. So this is, believe it or not, a 3-story monastery. So it seems that as the centuries went by, the sculptors got more skilled and the scale got more grand. And you can see that it's Mahayana. This is Avalokiteshvara and the 2 Taras. And this was around about the time that Buddhism was spreading to Tibet and China. So it was in India first. There's very clear evidence that these practices were coming from India. So you did our puja. You're actually, because it's owned by the it's managed by the Archaeological Survey, it's not supposed to offer flowers or rub oils or things, but we agreed, we talked to the guard and said, just let us put our flowers on this railing for 10 minutes, please. And he said, okay. So we offered our flowers. It's like, as a Buddhist going on pilgrimage, you want to make some offerings, right? You don't just want to take pictures. So did some chanting. Lovely light, soft diffused light inside the caves. It's so photogenic. You can't help but it becomes a little bit of one does take a lot of pictures. Partly is to look back on it and feel joy. See this grand balcony? It's almost like a modern penthouse condo with a beautiful veranda. This is on the 3rd floor. There's a very large Buddha inside the chapel room. And we all had a very good feeling about this Buddha. This is where I offered my roses. Just checking, JC, I can't see anyone because I'm doing this screen sharing. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ajahn, loud and clear.
Still there. Yeah. And you can see the picture clearly?
Yes, with you offering the roses.
Yeah, very big, beautiful Buddha. To the sides, there are 4 standing bodhisattvas, and on the other side, there are another 4. And in the Mahayana, they sometimes talk about the 8 great bodhisattvas. So that's what I think they are. There was a long row of teaching Buddhas, 8 teaching Buddhas. So we had a meditation in here. I wrote one of my journal entries from here, leaning against this post towards the end of the trip. You see the scale of this cave, it's enormous. And this is the 3rd floor. Lovely, spacious windows. This is the Chanting Vihara. It's bigger than the ones at Ajanta. Huge. I think because they were receiving royal support, what I think happened is the king basically, he probably had 500 of his workers come and do the taking out of the stone, and then the teams of sculptors came. But there seems to have been more support. Personally, I feel that I feel the detail of the carving at Ajanta was superior, but the layout and the architecture of these caves is really, really lovely. There's a lovely sense of openness here. And there's this waterfall smack between 2 monasteries. It's like natural air conditioning. And this hall behind the waterfall was, I think, where the monks took their meal. It would have been naturally cool in the hot season. More photos. It's interesting. I didn't feel the same. I loved it and I appreciated it. It was a really enjoyable outing, and I didn't feel the same familiarity as I did with the Ajanta caves, 3 hours drive away. This came a few centuries later, this place. Ajahn Buakau. So we did our pujas to the Buddha at Ajanta, and we did our pujas to the Bodhisattvas at Ellora. Cover all bases. These are the taras. There was this lovely side room which was between level 2 and 3. And there was just this beautiful soft golden light in the afternoon. So took a few pictures. This lotus motif on the ceiling is extraordinary. So this is the Hindu temple carved out of the mountain, Mount Kailash, which is, I guess in Buddhism we call it Mount Sumeru, the center of the universe. And you can see the paint that used to be all over the wall. This is the dancing Shiva. I think they call that Shiva Nataraja. It's very interesting when you go to the Buddhist cave, as soon as you get to the periphery, you feel this cool peacefulness embrace you. At least I do. And when you come to the Hindu section, I felt a bit dizzy. I'm not saying that has anything to do with Shiva, but it may have something to do with his disciples in the current age. And the other monks noticed the same thing. The Hindu section was kind of dizzy, and the Buddha section was peaceful. The Jain section felt a bit sad. When the Jains believed that you had to kind of force yourself to go through great austerity to purify karma. The Buddha explained that as a wrong view. And so probably a lot of people suffering in those caves, trying to purify their karma. This is the Shiva Lingam, a representation of the god Shiva inside the temple. So because it's all the same color, you can't really get much of a sense for the scale and the detail. But it really is, I think it's one of the wonders of the world. And some of the photos, you get a bit more of a sense, like these ones in the corners, you get a bit more of a sense. And this is the mountain. This is Mount Meru, the center of the universe. Here are the locals. What do you think of those green sunglasses? Going to this part of India as a white person who's a monk, it's kind of interesting. It's a bit like being Bruce Willis as a holy man. You know, a lot of Indians want to take a picture, but they're good-humored. Everyone was having fun. Yeah, so there's the back corner. You can see there's hundreds and hundreds of meters. This is from the side, from above. You can see where the mountain was, and how they've carved down and made this temple, carving from the top down to the bottom. Because the light was so lovely, and we made all the effort to get there, I asked Jin, would you mind being I'll be the artistic director, do you mind being the technician? And I was trying to get the perfect portrait for, I have a theory about the perfect monk's portrait. The perfect monk's portrait should have images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Arahants. The size of the monk should be fairly small. There should be a balance between warm and cool colors. It should be in nature. It should have a direct sense of connection to history. And the monk should appear like one part of the story, just one more monk in a long lineage of monks, many come before and many to come after. So that's Ajahn Achala's theory on the perfect bhikkhu portrait. And I thought, well, let's try. We can try to get some nice pictures. And of course, you're looking here and it's like you're at the edge of the world, nobody's there. Funny thing, of course, is as soon as you start taking pictures, some Indian people turn up and, can we take a picture? Can we take a picture? So, school kids. It's amazing how much noise one group of school children can make in a monastery made of stone. They're generally very respectful Indian children, quite polite. Another puja. We went 2 days. So some of these pictures are from the first day, some are from the second day. So this is the same room, right? I was sitting in front down here and these kids come in. Can we take the picture? But I love the, I love the gold and the dark, the gray and the orange. I don't know if those appreciation of color is, I approve. And natural, soft, late afternoon light, Indian light. It's very nice. So this will probably be the back cover of a book one day, if you approve. So we left, and goodbye. So that was the interlude, the 6-day adventure in between striving under the Bodhi tree. And we did go back feeling healthier. And So I hope you enjoyed that sharing. And if you're interested in joining a pilgrimage with Ajahn to Ajanta and Ellora Caves, as well as the Deer Park, let Auntie Joyce know. And might happen one day. But so in terms of some Dhamma to reflect upon, just considering that Ajanta Caves was a monastery for 900 years. I don't know how many thousands of monks lived and practiced there and nuns, so who knows. And then it got covered over by jungle. And then Ellora was a monastery for centuries, enjoying the patronage of 4 dynasties. And it also got grown over, unattended. So Buddhism almost completely died out in India after 1500 years and spread to many other places. But it's a real reflection on an uplifting note. You see the power of the faith of people. Many of the main sponsors of these caves would not have lived to see them finished. When you look at the average modern person's attention span, can you imagine giving up a huge part of your income or your inheritance or your wealth to make a cave that you won't see finished? It's your children might see it finished or your grandchildren, but a lot of people did that. It's quite extraordinary. So one feels the depth of the faith and the generosity, and then one feels the gratitude. There's the monks and nuns and these places kept Buddhism alive, and it spread to other places. But then one has to also notice the sobering reflection of no matter how grand it was, no matter how many arahants there were, or great bodhisattvas, they arose, stayed for some time, and ceased. So we have to recognize our current opportunity, and we have to recognize the fleeting nature of the opportunities that we have. And so let's all knuckle down, keep up our practice. Like drops of water in a bucket builds up over time. We have to be consistent in our efforts at cultivating mindfulness and samadhi and developing insight. So I hope that was enjoyable to you, taking you on a little journey with me. And once again, share the merits of my fulfilling my vow with you. And look forward to sharing more Dhamma with you this year. Happy New Year.